Today we will be discussing about travel restrictions that are in place to come to Canada. Now, I have received a lot of questions over uh, YouTube comment section, TikTok, and Instagram. So I think we have enough questions to address all these issues about travel restrictions, and hopefully you would be able to get your answer by the end of this session. Okay. So I'll quickly start with temporary foreign workers. A lot of students who graduated and then they received their postgraduate work permit wanted to know if they can come back to Canada or not. So what the government is saying right now is, if you have your work permit, they're saying that all temporary foreign workers can come to Canada by land or air. So if you have a postgraduate work permit, or if you have a closed work permit, that is an employer specific work permit, then yes, you can come to Canada. And along with that, you also have to make sure that you have your valid visa if you are coming from a country for which you need to have a visa. Okay. So hope that clarifies your question about postgraduate work permit holders, whether they are able to come to Canada or not. So yes, they are definitely able to come to Canada. And for students, they are saying that if your application, so let's say if you are a student and you are outside Canada and your application was approved on or before 18th of March 2020, then yes, you can come to Canada. Now, most important thing is, let us say if you are a student inside Canada, okay, and you were planning to go out of Canada for some reason, okay. So in that case, if you are making sure that you are applying for your postgraduate work permit after the completion of your studies, then yes, you can travel outside Canada and then come back to Canada as long as you have a valid visa. Okay. If you are coming from a visa free country, then you don't need to have a visa. But uh, okay, so Robert is saying after a long time. Yes, after a long time. So coming back to the topic, so if you have all the valid documents to come back to Canada, then yes, you can board a plane and come to Canada. Okay. Similarly, if you are a postgraduate work permit holder, or if you have an employer specific work permit and you are already inside Canada, okay, then yes, you can leave Canada and you can come back to Canada as long as your documents are valid. Okay, so you have to make sure you have all the valid documents with you. Okay. Another important thing for students is, let us say if you have completed your studies, okay, and you have applied for your postgraduate work permit application. So what happens is, once you submit your online application, within few days you will receive your biometrics instruction letter. Okay. So what they're saying is, even if the biometrics instruction letter says that the deadline is 30 days to complete the biometrics, right now, because they have closed all the Service Canada locations, all the designated Service Canada locations. So in that case, they are automatically offering an extension of 90 days. So you don't have to worry about that right now. Okay. And another important thing is, what they're saying is, if you uh, come to know that they're accepting biometrics at any port of entry, because they have those measures in place at some ports of entry where they are allowed to take biometrics. They're saying, do not go to the border to do this, because right now that's considered as non-essential travel. So even if for some reason someone is advising you to go to the border right now, do not go to the border for biometrics. Just wait for the designated Service Canada locations to open up, and only then you can go and complete your entire biometric process from there. Okay. So that is an update for biometrics. And they're also saying, like, let's say if now this is for people who are part of the PR process. So let's say if your express entry process is in the pipeline, and then they have requested some documents from you. It can be police clearance certificate, it can be a medical certificate, like medical exams to be done. So what you can do is, uh, if for some reason you are unable to provide all these documents, they are giving an extension for that. So you don't have to worry if you do not uh, uh, if you do not submit those documents right away by that specific timeline to IRCC. Okay, they are offering an extension on all the additional documentation requests. Now, we spoke about temporary foreign workers, we spoke about students, and another important topic is for permanent resident applications and immediate family members who are waiting to come to Canada. And there is a lot of confusion about the whole scenario with immediate family members. So we will talk about that uh, over here. Just give me a few seconds. Okay. So, a straightforward thing with PR applications. Let us say if you are currently outside Canada and you received your PR application approval on or before 18th of March 2020, then yes, you fall under these exemptions. You can come to Canada. Okay, that is one thing. So let us keep that aside. Now let us talk about immediate family members. So let us say if a husband is a permanent resident or a Canadian citizen, okay, and he is inside Canada, and the wife, okay, the wife is outside Canada, and the wife has a visitor visa to Canada, or the wife has a valid study permit, or the wife has a valid work permit, and she is outside Canada. Then in that case, the wife can come to Canada because she is an immediate family member of a Canadian citizen or a Canadian PR, a Canadian permanent resident. So there was a question where people were saying that, hey, my wife is having a visitor visa to Canada, and she was not allowed to board the plane. Now, this was few days ago when IRCC made this scenario clear. So at that point of time, I would say the airlines do have, like, some kind of uh, discretion. And if they were trying to interpret these instructions in a different way, then unfortunately, you wouldn't have been able to do anything at that point of time. But right now, they have clarified the scenario pretty clearly in the latest notification, and I will be sharing the link of this notification in the description box at the end of this session. So what they're saying is, even if your spouse or your children have a visitor visa to Canada, and the person who is inside Canada, he's a PR or a Canadian citizen, then yes, your immediate family members, like your spouse, your kids, your parents, your step parents, they can come to Canada. Okay. Now, another interesting question about immediate family members of people who are inside Canada and are not permanent residents or Canadian citizens. So let us say, for an example, uh, there is a person inside Canada. He is here on a closed work permit. Okay, he's working for a specific employer. He's here on a work permit, and he has his wife who is outside Canada, and she has a visitor visa, so that she can, like, she's been here to Canada before, or she was planning to come to Canada. So what they're saying is, in that case, you do not directly fall under these exemptions. What you need to have is, you need to have a written authorization by a consular officer. And few days ago, when they released this notification, they did not really explain, like, how to obtain that written authorization. And now they've made it very clear. They've given an email ID, which I will be sharing in the description box. So what you can do is, if you fall under this category, then you have to send an email to them. So what they can do is they will get back to you within 48 hours. That's what the latest advisory says. They will be getting back to you in 48 hours. And if you get that written authorization, that is what you need along with all the other important documents to board the plane. Okay, so that is the key difference. So if you are an immediate family member of a Canadian PR, Canadian permanent resident, or a Canadian citizen, then in that case you do not need to have that written authorization. But if you are working inside Canada, or if you are studying inside Canada, and all your immediate family members have the valid documents to come to Canada, then they need one more additional document, which is that written authorization. Okay, and they're also saying that at the time of boarding the plane, first of all, like obviously you have to tell the airlines that you do fall under these exemptions, and you should be carrying all these documents with you. And I will be sharing the link of the latest advisory, so you can take a printout. If not, you can just you can also display that on your cell phone. So apart from that, you have to declare this to the airlines that you fall under exemption. Second important thing is you have to declare that you have to prove to them that you are an immediate family member. So for that, you need to have your marriage certificate document, and if your spouse is a Canadian PR or a Canadian citizen, then you need to have the document that explains the latest immigration status of your spouse who is in Canada. So if your spouse is a Canadian PR, then you can produce a copy of the PR card, a photocopy of the PR card, and they're also accepting confirmation of permanent residence documents as well. So you can show that. And let us say, uh, uh, this is an important scenario, because I think someone was asking a question about COPR specifically. So let us say that if in Jan 2020, okay, you became a PR, you came to Canada, you completed your landing process, and you were expecting that your wife or your children would join you in Canada by, let us say, April 2020. So what they're saying is, if the COPR says that, like, uh, the person who came to Canada in 2020, in Jan 2020, yeah, there is his name on the COPR document, and the wife and the children's name on the COPR as well, which which is declaring them as dependents. Then yes, that document is acceptable as well. Okay, so there are a couple of things you have to do at the airport. The first thing is to tell them that you fall under these exemptions. The second thing is to prove that you are an immediate family member, and the third thing is to prove the immigration status of the person who is inside Canada, who is your family member. Okay, and another extremely important thing to remember is that they are saying that if the immediate family member has a visitor visa, then the person can only come to Canada if they are planning to, be with the person who is inside Canada, and not visiting Canada just for recreation or tourism purposes. That is very important, because that is considered as non-essential travel. Okay, so that is a very important thing to remember. And one common thing which is applicable to everyone who is coming to Canada right now is that you have to self isolate yourself for 14 days, 14 days. So, if anyone is planning to come to Canada, you have to make sure that even though you fall under all these exemptions, uh, you will be able to self isolate yourself for 14 days, and you would have all the help that you need in those 14 days. So there are basic things, right? Like you need a place to stay, then you need to have your groceries to be arranged, and maybe a cell phone. So so unless and until you know someone, if you have friends over here who can help you uh, with that process, do not come to Canada. Right now, they're also saying that if anyone is found violating this quarantine period, like the self isolation of 14-day period, then there will be a heavy fine imposed on those individuals. So you don't want that, right? So just make sure that you plan how you would sustain or survive for those 14 days inside Canada as soon as you land. Okay. Okay. And we have some more questions. Mm, okay. So there is one more question that I wanted to bring up in this discussion. What they're saying is, and this is the same thing which I discussed in my previous video. Uh, if you have seen that, if anyone is inside the United States, okay, and provided they have been there in the last 14 days, then they can come to Canada. So it doesn't matter if the person is um, a Canadian permanent resident, a Canadian citizen, or if the person is holding a postgraduate work permit, doesn't matter. If the person has been inside the States and he has a valid reason, an essential reason to come to Canada, and he is able to prove at the border that he has been inside the States for 14 days, then yes, you can come to Canada. Okay. And in case if you do not know, then you can take a direct flight from US to Canada, or you can also enter Canada through the land border. Okay. And it is also important to check what is the status of that land border, because I mean a lot of people go to and fro between States and Canada. Now you want to make sure that the the land border, that particular land border, is open when you are planning to cross the land border, because today is 7th of April 2020, and I think I just got an update this morning that one of the borders in Ontario was closed due to some reason. So just make sure that you plan all these things in advance. Okay. Now, I'm just trying to see what other questions we have over here. Um, mm, okay. And we have a couple of more things to discuss. Okay, so there is one more question, and they're saying that they're asking if this is the right time to come to Canada. Now, guys, to be very straightforward with you, right now is not the ideal time to come to Canada unless you have a very genuine reason to come to Canada, because if you check the daily updates as to what is happening in Canada and how the number of coronavirus cases are increasing every day, you would come to know the ground reality of things. And before I talk about the numbers, it is very important to also talk about the misunderstanding that people have about the emergency benefits that Canadian government has declared few weeks ago. For some reason, there is this misunderstanding among people that, hey, you just need to be inside Canada, and uh, as long as you are there and you are not working or you are unemployed, then you are able to claim all those benefits. It does not work like that. There have been a lot of videos, a lot of articles, misleading articles, where people are telling international students that, hey, as long as you were earning $5,000 in last 12 months, you are eligible for these emergency benefits, and you would be able to claim uh, $2,000 per month. So you have to read the eligibility requirements properly. It's not like that. You have to make sure that you're fulfilling all the uh, points under the eligibility section, and then find out if you are really able to claim that money or not. Just because you earned $5,000, let's see, let's take an example. So a student who was inside Canada in the year 2019, let's say he earned $6,000 from a part-time job, okay, and then he stopped working in let's say Jan 2020. And right now, when this whole situation became pretty much active in last couple of weeks, and the announcement came in about the emergency benefits, uh, then that does not make you eligible because you were not working. It's not that you lost your job or your wages were reduced. Nothing like that happened to you. You already stopped working in Jan 2020. So just because you were earning $5,000, you earned more than $5,000 in 2019, it does not make you eligible for emergency benefits. Okay, and there is also a misunderstanding that for people who have received their COPR documents and who are outside Canada, they want to complete their landing process because they think that by completing the landing process, like they will become permanent residents of Canada, and after that they will be eligible for all the benefits that Canadian government has announced. So it does not work like that. You have to read all these things very carefully, just follow them very carefully, and do not fall for all these misleading things. It doesn't work like that. Okay. Now, uh, talking about the coronavirus numbers as of 7th of April 2020, there are more than 17,800 cases in Canada, okay? And the highest number of coronavirus cases are currently in Ontario, followed by Quebec, and then on number third position, there is Alberta, followed by British Columbia on number four. So now you also have to understand that where do most of the immigrants go when they land inside Canada? And this is the same question that I discussed in the previous video, if you have seen that. Most of the new immigrants actually go to all these provinces. So right now, if there is an emergency situation in all these provinces, then how do you think are you like how are things going to work out for you? Because if you land over here as a new immigrant, uh, and you don't have the resources around you, like let's say if you want to find a new place, or if you want to start for applying, like start applying for jobs, going to banks, if you don't have all those arrangements in place, how exactly are you going to uh, navigate, like for the initial 1 or 1.5 months? So it's very important you think, I mean, unless and until it is really really important to come to Canada, you have your valid reasons, and people can have their own valid reasons. My advice is not to come to Canada. Okay. And that actually brings up one more thing, that there was a question about COPR. So people who have received COPR documents and their document was expiring in next couple of months, so they're asking what do we do? Okay, so it's mentioned very clearly that if you are unable to complete your landing process before that deadline, so let us again consider an example. If your COPR is expiring by uh, 15th of May 2020, and you know that you will not be able to come to Canada because even though Canada is like, even though Canada is accepting people whose applications were approved on or before 18th of March, you know that you fall under exemptions, but you are unable to come to Canada because the flights from your home country are not available or are not operating at this time. Then in that case, you simply have to fill out the web form and let IRCC know that you are unable to complete your landing process because of XYZ reasons. Okay. Once you do that, you do not have to worry about the reply, because right now on a daily basis they are receiving like hundreds and thousands of emails, so do not expect them to reply within a week, I would say. I mean, there are a lot of people who are panicking because they're not receiving a reply. I would say just wait for a few weeks, you will receive a reply as an acknowledgement. And as soon as that is done, They actually mention that uh, in the notes, and once it's there, like it's mentioned in the form of an instruction in the online system, it stays there. And what they're saying is, whenever you are able to come to Canada, once, like, things come down to normal, you can send them another email, or you can send them another web form, and uh, tell them that this is the date that you plan to travel to Canada, and then they will advise you of the next steps. So even if your COPR document is expiring, do not panic about that. They will uh, guide you as to how to extend that COPR and how you can complete your landing process. Now, in case if you are new to this whole immigration scenario, let me tell you that extension of COPR document, extension of confirmation of permanent residence document, is a very rare thing. And right now, if that's happening, you have to understand the gravity of the situation, that things are really so bad right now that even IRCC is saying that yes, we will extend your COPR documents. So you have to consider this as as a very rare thing, and obviously it's a privilege being given to all the people who were planning to come to Canada and are unable to complete their landing process because of so many reasons that's surrounding the whole coronavirus situation. Okay, and what else do we have? Mm, there was one more update yesterday, that the curve in the coronavirus curve in British Columbia is flattening. It is a positive news, but again, you just cannot depend on that, because this is just the first wave. So we don't know what's happening in next couple of weeks. So uh, do not just uh, fall for all these positive signs. There is still a long way to go. Okay, and students are asking about GIC. So that is another extremely important point. Let us say that your study permit was approved on or before 18th of March 2020. Okay, and in next couple of weeks you are able to come to Canada. uh, you have to make sure, again, I'm stressing on that point, that you have to make sure that you have those arrangements in place where you are able to self isolate yourself for 14 days. Okay, why? Because right now, even when students are going to the banks to activate the GICs, the banks are asking them what was your landing date. And if you simply go to the bank within that 14-day period, they are turning you away. So you don't want that. And let's say if you have already made arrangements, you're coming to Canada, do not depend on the GIC activation right away, for at least for those initial 2 weeks. Make sure you do have some cash in hand. Okay, or make sure you have some kind of card through which you will be able to withdraw some money to survive in those initial 14 days, or I would say 3 to 4 weeks. Okay, what else do we have? Mm, so we discussed, I think, most of the travel restrictions and exemptions. And just in case if you did not know, if you do not fall under all these exemptions, and you were um, willing to know the end date of all these restrictions in place, right now it says it's 30th of June 2020. So at least as of now, you will not be able to travel to Canada if the restrictions are imposed on you and you do not fall under all these exemptions. Now, another important area is for people who are inside Canada. Let us say you are working on a work permit, and your PR application process is completed. You have received the approval email, and you were planning to go to the border. So CBSA has made it very clear that not to come to border for flagpoling because that is considered as non-essential travel. So they won't be able to help you with flagpoling. Now there may be one or two cases where your friends may come to you and tell you that, hey, I got my flagpoling done. So that is good news, but that's not happening with everyone. So what CBSA is saying that do not take any chances, do not come to the border unnecessarily, and instead what they're saying is there is an option to fix a landing appointment. It is done at an inland office inside Canada. So there is an option to do that. But right now, all the landing appointments at an inland CIC office are cancelled till 13th of April 2020. Okay, but after that you can follow up, you can keep monitoring, and you can also send a web form to them and tell them that you want to complete your landing process at an inland landing office closer to your location. So you will receive a reply from CIC about that. And what they typically do is, as soon as they receive this request, they issue a different letter that has a specific date and a specific time to complete that landing process. So that you are able to arrange everything well ahead of time and complete your landing process and become permanent residents of Canada. Okay. Another interesting thing about inland inland landing appointment is that uh, IRCC is saying that they may simply complete the landing process over telephone for people who are inside Canada. There may be a strong chance that you may not even have to go to an inland CIC office, and they would simply complete this whole process over phone. Now they have done that in the past. They do that a lot of times with spousal sponsorship applications. So there is a strong chance that because they do not want too many people at their offices, they may choose that option and complete everything over phone, and then they send you the updated COPR document, which is stamped and signed over mail. So yeah, there are a lot of options, and right now I would say if you are inside Canada, you don't really have to worry about anything. If your status is expiring, if you are a visitor, or um, if you are let's say a student who plans to study in the next semester and your study permit is expiring, then in that case you can immediately apply for an extension, uh, or you can apply to change your status. You can make an application to change your immigration status inside Canada and inform CIC right away. Okay. So I think we have covered most of the questions about exemptions that fall under these travel restrictions. So uh, if you still have any questions, just post them in the comment section, and I will try to answer them in the comment section, or I will make another video. And I'm already answering a lot of questions over TikTok as well, so you can check out that space too. All the best, guys, and thanks for asking all these questions. Uh, I will see you soon. Take care, and most important, stay safe.